they gave us a clue. The Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria gave us a clue that unemployment would likely be revised downwards once they go with the updated standards that are used by the International Labour Organization. We weren't sure by how much, but we finally got the numbers. So for Q4 2020, which is the last time we got unemployment numbers, our unemployment was 33%. And with this new revision, unemployment has now fallen, I think, to 4.1%. So it's quite a fall. So they're essentially, one of the main changes is how employment is calculated. So the old methodology, if you are working from 20 hours, at least 20 hours a week, you were considered to be 20 hours and above, you're considered to be employed. But now the new revision, it's 1 hour a week and above. So if you're working at least an hour, then let me even send this table to you. This table has like the summary of it. So if you're working at least an hour a week, you are considered to be employed. What else is there? The sample size they used to be 33,300 people. The new methodology is 35,250. The data collection used to be quarterly. Now they're saying they're going to be collecting this data weekly. That is regular. Working age population, another interesting change here. It used to be the working age population was capped from 15 years to 64 years. It looks like they've removed the cap now. So now it's 15 years and above. And then underemployment. This one is interesting. Underemployment, if you worked between underemployment, okay, so yeah, if you work between 20 to 39 hours was the old methodology. Now, if you work between 1 to 39 hours and you're available for more work, but you're available for more work, but you haven't found it, and you're actively seeking and available, then you're underemployed. So I guess the main one was that 1 hour a week and above. It's interesting, if somebody works for at least an hour a week and above, then you are employed.
Well, and I don't really.
So that's why we now have an unemployment rate. So the first quarter, let me see, go back to those numbers now. The first quarter of this year, because it was so first quarter of 2023, no, sorry, the last quarter of 2022, we had unemployment of, I think it was 5.3%. Let me make sure I have those figures. Anyway, it's fallen to single digits. That is where we are right now. And Nigeria basically has one of the lowest unemployment numbers in the world. Yeah, okay, so Q4 2022 was 5.3%. That's the last 3 months of last year. Q1 of this year, the first 3 months of this year, 4.1% unemployment. So those are the new numbers, just like that.
Looking at this latest report, it would seem like there seems to be no rest for anybody in this country. Looking at what they are telling us from 15 to 64, there is no rest any longer in Nigeria.
So that increases the labor force. That just increases it. But you're supposed to retire. At a certain point. But it looks like now, if you're still hustling, you're still hustling, and they'll count you.
So that in itself is quite troubling, because one, I think who benefits from that when you have that kind of figure, because it seems the employers now have some respite, at least because they have you in service for a longer time.
Yeah, and then that means you probably have to pay pensions for a longer time and benefits and so on. But I think employers will continue to still focus on the numbers that they used to, except, because again, the cap was at 64. Now you're saying, so maybe, people 65, 66, 67 can keep working if they wish. But the question now is, does this make governments sit back and say, oh, we don't need to do anything? I don't think so. I mean, it would be nice to hear from the Minister of Labor and Employment as to what this does to the government's goals. Because since we're talking Tech Friday, I know that the government is partnering, I think, with Google and one of the banks to train people digitally, do some digital training so they can find jobs in certain areas. So I do want to hear from the government. Would they say, oh, this vindicates job creation? I mean, they just came into office, so they can't do that. But yeah, that sticking point is that 1 hour a week. Is there anybody that can work for an hour, just an hour a week, and say that they are employed? That is
then what then
something else.
What then do we now define as underemployment now?
Yeah, if you've worked, so the thing is, underemployment, of course, refers to you working in a job that you are significantly overqualified for. So that is still there. And it's likely that, I think, because of how they've shifted around with these figures and this new standard, maybe we'll see a substantial increase in underemployment. And I think youth unemployment numbers will still probably remain where they are. We need jobs. We need jobs.
Now,
we still need jobs.
Do you see the COVID playing any part in this restructuring in what you see? Because from the COVID down, you see companies have restructured the way in which they work. People now, more persons working from home. Do you see that reflected in these figures from what we see?
Yeah, so that is going. And if you do a virtual job, and maybe you do a consulting thing, or you only do it for an hour, before you were not probably considered to be employed. Now, people that do these virtual jobs for just 60 minutes or more will now be considered. But the individual themselves, an individual who only works for 1 hour a week, I don't know anybody that does that, but maybe if you teach a class, once a week you consider yourself a part-time teacher, do you now consider yourself fully employed? So I kind of doubt that one individual would feel that way and feel that they are fully employed working just an hour or more a week. But I do want to hear the government's response on this. I still think, of course, there's still jobs that need to be found. Nigeria still has a big job gap.
While you wait for the government response, Rotus, and hopefully they will get back to you, but I see Gbenga Kamu is here with his response to you. Whatever methodology the Bureau of Statistics is using, we do know millions of Nigerians are unemployed. Where do you get people working in an hour in Nigeria? Gbenga Kamu says. And then Isiaka from Ebute Meta goes on. Good morning, guys. I don't subscribe to this methodology. If our unemployment is so low, what's our productivity and how has this impacted on our output and GDP? Isiaka.
Right. Exactly. That is a very, very good question. So if you are considering more people employed now with just an hour of work, you might actually get some skewed GDP figures in terms of output, So I guess they'll be considering more of those people in their output figures when they're doing their surveys for GDP, because GDP again is the market value of all goods and services, the output of goods and services in a particular period of time in an economy, right? So are you considering those people who are only working for an hour as being productive? I mean, I know some people very productive people who can do certain things in an hour and, faster than some other people can do in several hours, but still, it doesn't change the landscape for Nigeria's job issues. It doesn't change the fact that every single one of us knows a person that is looking for work, and it doesn't change the fact that Nigeria's youth are still largely unemployed, So I guess we'll now have to look at how this is recalculated for the states and everything else. But this doesn't change the work that needs to be done.
There is an underlying current in what we are talking about, and that is the place of technology in all of this. So how can we leverage on technology now to create more jobs? Because it's seeming like it's only when you work, it seems applicable to the tech more, where you can put in an hour sheet and then you are sure you've done.
Well, you see, But will which individual will count themselves as fully employed in that sort of job? I can imagine that anybody who gets an offer in some tech company to do this virtual work is definitely going to want to work for more than an hour because your pay will be impacted. Check it out. The salaries are not going to reflect that somebody who works for an hour for an hour a week is going to make the same salary as somebody who works for 40 hours a week, right? That's not going to change. That the pay structure, you'll still be considered like a part-time person or a contract worker, or maybe just somebody that's a consultant or something if you're doing that for an hour. So that's if the pay was changing, even me, I'll work 1 hour a week and collect my salary.
Rotus, the messages are pouring hard and fast, and I guess they would love to hear what you're taking some of their issues here. I've got Sam from Iyanokpaja saying, we only have ourselves to fool with these fake new unemployment figures. I won't take anything better for Nigerians. And then Raman Oyebanji from Yaba says, good morning, Rotus and Omas. Interesting statistics, I must say. Should we start asking ILO some questions about how they deduce this standard? Is the remuneration of 1 hour a week enough to cater for such individual and his or her family?
Right, there it is. There it is.
Benga Kamu comes back at you and says, so we are now juicing job numbers because I think we are adopting this method to obscure the reality of unemployment. Sunday Tochukwu comes up again and says, please, are they now telling us that people who eat once a week are eating very well? Is that what they mean? Sunday Tochukwu, bring that one in. Ohio comes in with this one. I know some people who teach in 2 schools. In one, he goes there only for 1 day, but this past week experience makes him underemployed.
Yeah. Exactly, because he's working, he's fully employed now, just teach work. And that's somebody who works there for 1 day.
Yes.
Saying 1 hour.
Yes.
So if he teaches a class for 1 hour, that's it, he's fully employed.
So our final message is from Ahmed from Ogudu saying 1 hour job per week. How much will such person earn? How can such person survive in Nigerian economy? Does the NBS, those that have lost their job due to subsidy removal, is asking if it was factored in?
No, so this is something they started working since May, July. So they've already started. So yeah, they've already started looking at that. So it's. I don't think anybody is going to fully accept this. Again, we still have work to do. I just hope if we hear from the government that they don't go and say, this is good news. So it's just the issues are still there.
Rotus, our job is done this morning, and it's a wrap for you. So you've done 1 week. You've done your job this week. Have a great day, Rotus.
Thank you, Omas. Thanks everyone. SMS. See you on Monday.
All right. That's it with Rotus Oddiri on Business Express, the Tech Friday edition. My name is Omatseye.